Hey, Jim Kielbaso here with a little question and answer session. And the question that I get all the time from coaches trying to kind of break into things is, how do I get into a high school to be a high school strength and conditioning coach? Or essentially, how do I become a high school strength and conditioning coach? And there's lots of different answers for that, and hopefully some of my thoughts and experiences and advice will help you in your career path, trying to get into a high school or become a high school strength and conditioning coach. So the first thing that you have to ask yourself before you even get started is this really what you want? And I think a lot of people look at being a high school strength and conditioning coach as just the fun parts and like how great it would be to interact with athletes all the time. And that is true. I love being in high schools. It's one of my favorite parts of my job is to be in high schools, interacting with lots of different kinds of athletes and coaches and teams. It's something that energizes me and that I'm passionate about, and it just makes me want to do it all the time. But it doesn't work for everybody. And some of the things that you have to understand is that if you're going to be in high schools, the schedule is pretty much going to be right after school and oftentimes before school, so early mornings. If you have a training job or another job that maybe won't allow you to be there in the middle of the day, because it's usually going to be between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock-ish in most schools. So if you have a day job and you're trying to do this on top of that, that's going to be difficult. If you are running a training facility like what I own at Impact Sports Performance, then it may be difficult for you to do that also, because a lot of athletes are coming to you to train after school. So it has to fit your schedule. It also has to fit your financial goals, because while some states and some schools have well-funded high school strength and conditioning programs, other schools do not, and there's simply a lack of financial resources in that area. So sometimes you may be working for a lot less doing that than you would doing almost anything else. Maybe that's not an issue for you though. Maybe you want to volunteer your time and you want to do this on top of your job, or the money doesn't really matter, or maybe it does fit your schedule. But you really need to understand kind of what you're getting into. On top of that, you also need to understand that not every high school coach is on board and is going to be clamoring to take advantage of your services. I thought that would be kind of the way things are, and that every high school coach would love to have a strength and conditioning coach at their disposal to help their athletes become bigger, faster, stronger, and that kind of thing. But you know what? Not every high school coach wants that. Some high school coaches want complete control over their programs. Other high school coaches just simply don't value strength and conditioning. Others think that maybe it's going to create more work on their part. Others don't want to add anything else onto the athletes' schedules. So there's a variety of reasons why you may not get buy-in from every single coach that is available to you. But let's say that it works for you. Let's say that you want to do this, you're passionate about it, you financially and schedule-wise it works perfectly. The next thing you're going to have to do is make sure that you're qualified and you can pass a background check. Nowadays, you're not going to get into any school without passing some sort of clearance or background check, which is a great thing. And then your qualifications are really going to depend on what they're looking for at that school. The IYCA High School Strength and Conditioning Strength and Conditioning Specialist is a great certification, the only certification that I know of that's specifically designed for working in a high school. But you've also got NSCA and the CSCCA and a variety of other credentials that could be procured to get yourself qualified. And it's really, again, going to depend on what the school wants. typically they're going to want some sort of a nationally known certification, and a lot of times they want a degree. Some high schools will create the job more like a college strength and conditioning job, where maybe they want a master's degree and they have particular certifications that they want, while other high schools will have almost no real qualifications other than they like the person. So you're going to need to figure out what kind of qualifications need to be met, and do you meet them for that particular school. And that's something that you're going to definitely want to talk to an athletic director or at least some of the coaches before even approaching anyone about that opportunity. The next thing you need to know is that you have to be really good at what you do. And you have to be good at a variety of things. And I kind of wrote some things down. You need to be experienced in working with groups. You need to be able to work with large groups and accommodate different needs in those groups. You have to be able to command a room or a field with some sort of charisma and presence. You need to create an engaging atmosphere. Sometimes you're going to have to discipline kids and student athletes. You're going to need to be a role model. You're going to have to work with lots of different personalities, both the coaches and the athletes and administrators and parents, lots of different people that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to be able to work with lots of different levels of commitment and athleticism. You're not going to be working with just elite athletes all the time. In fact, most of the time you're going to spend a lot of your time teaching basics to younger athletes who have not lifted, so that you can make progress with them while they're there. So you have to be really good at teaching. You have to be quite patient. You have to have energy. You have to be a role model and have great character, and be willing to adjust your program based on the needs and opinions of the coaches that you're going to be working with. And I emphasize opinions because oftentimes it's just the opinion of a coach of what he or she may want you to do, and you may think you know better, but you're going to have to work with that kind of person in that kind of situation to make sure that you're creating something that works for everybody. So in order to get in and to get started, you may have to do a couple of things. You may have to just start working with one kid, help one athlete get better, and it might open the door for you. That takes time though. You have to help that athlete get bigger or stronger or faster or whatever it is, to prove some results. Then maybe a coach would want to bring you into the program to work with more athletes. You may need to volunteer your time, but just because you are willing to volunteer your time doesn't necessarily mean that that school or teams want you to be there, because you may not be what they're looking for. Other coaches have done things like run free clinics or workshops or a few free sessions, and basically volunteered their time as almost like an audition or a job interview to see if they really like you. And usually the idea is, once I start working with all these athletes, they're going to love me and they're going to see what I can do and they're going to want me to be here more. That could be true, and hopefully it is, but make sure that you are really good at what you're doing before you offer to do that kind of thing. Because once you're there and you do that audition or that volunteer time, they're gonna know at that point whether they want you or whether they don't. And if they don't like what they see, or you're not a good fit, or they don't like the way you're doing something, well, that's pretty much the end of the journey at that point. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you're prepared, you're ready, and you are energized and wanting to do this really badly. You also may need to spend a lot of time building relationships with coaches and ADs and parents, and that also takes time. You're gonna have to be very patient. In some of the high schools that I work in, it took years of developing relationships with different people in the schools. Sometimes it took many years. Other times it was a little bit shorter. But it does take a long time to develop the trust and relationships to get yourself into a situation where they even have the opportunity to do that. So just because you have developed relationships and you volunteered your time doesn't mean that they're going to have the funding or the opportunity or the support of administration to create that position. So you're going to have to go into each situation knowing, well, this may work, this may not work. Other times they're going to have a job posting that's up, and you know that there's going to be a job available, and it will be more of an interview type process. And instead of developing relationships, it's more about an interview type situation. And then you're going to be relying on references and your past body of work as well as your interview skills. And they may have you go in and coach to do kind of that live audition. That's more of a like a job opening type position rather than creating a position. And you're not going to know which one it is depending, that will depend on the school system that you're trying to get your foot in the door. That also really depends on the state and the funding and what's around you. So at many smaller schools in smaller towns or rural areas, they may not have the same funding that they would at a bigger school, and in particular private schools that may be able to get the money through private donations or fundraising. So something else you'll need to be aware of is where the money is going to come from for your job. Do they have to fundraise? Or is this something that has been budgeted? Will parents need to pay extra for this? All of these things happen. In some states, they have a well-funded strength and conditioning coach during the school year. Oftentimes it's a teacher and they're there during the school day. Other states, you're not allowed to be in the school during the day teaching classes if you're not a certified teacher. So sometimes you're required to be a teacher in the school, other times you're not. Other times it's fundraising like boosters clubs or private donations, and other times parents actually pay for a program that's offered at the school either in the summer or after school. So you're going to want to know what kind of situation you're getting into, and all of those things are possible. I've seen it all. I've seen it all in different states where maybe you have a strength coach at the school, and in the next town over, it's an outside firm that brings in a coach, and they hire that coach on a contract basis. And other times it's kind of every combination you can possibly think of. And then once you do get in there, be ready for anything, and be ready for things to change, because athletic directors will change, coaching staffs will change, administration will change, parents and booster club involvement will change. So just because you're in a high school now doesn't mean you're going to continue to be, or even want to be in that high school a couple years from now when a lot of things change. I've seen that happen over and over again also in my career and in the careers of friends all over the country. Things do change quite quickly. And you're going to also need to be willing to do a lot of extra things. You're going to have to be willing to work with too many kids, probably in one small space. You're going to have to work with a limited budget. You're going to sometimes have to work with amazing facilities, and other times with a lack of facilities and lack of equipment. Other times you're going to work with a lack of time and a lack of commitment from coaches, and you're going to be called on to fundraise and to get out into the hallways and get kids in. But other times the coaches will do that for you. So you have to kind of be ready for anything and willing to do whatever it takes to help kids out, because that's ultimately, hopefully, what you want to do is help kids and make a difference, make an impact on their lives. And if that's the case, you're going to really like this job and you're going to do well in it because you're going to be willing to do all those things. If that's not what you're trying to do, and you're trying to make some money and post stuff on social media about kids that you're working with, it's probably not going to work out as well for you. So you're going to have to think about what your motivations are. And then also understand that each coach and each school is going to be looking for something a little bit different. Some schools want a very serious or a low-key coach that's very much into teaching and is not going to discipline anyone. They just want it to be a positive environment. Others want it to be a higher pressure environment. Other schools are looking for a hype man. They want somebody who's just full of energy all the time. Others want somebody whose demeanor is more low-key, so that some of the less committed kids are more in touch with that person's personality and feel more comfortable. So you're going to need to know what the school and what the teams want. And then also sometimes you may have to be a little bit of a chameleon and know that maybe with one team you need to be the hype man, and with another team you need to be more of a teacher. And another team, the coach may want you to be more of a disciplinarian. And you're going to have to be able to be lots of different things to lots of different people. So hopefully this gives you some good information and good insight on how to get started on being a high school strength and conditioning coach and getting your foot in the door at high schools. I personally, again, I love being in high schools. I love working with lots of different coaches and lots of different kids and teaching from the ground up, as well as working with more advanced athletes who have done a lot of things. I love the team chemistry and the camaraderie that goes along with being in a weight room with a lot of kids all working towards one goal, and being part of a school system, and having everybody, having the weight room kind of be the center of motivation for everybody. But each school is very different, and it's going to change, and it's not always perfect, and you're going to run into a lot of problems as well, so you have to be ready for anything. All right, so hopefully, again, this helps. I'd love to hear your comments, and as always, you can email me at jim@iyca.org with any questions that you have. But hopefully this answers a lot of the questions that I get. Good luck.